Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm on a journey to grow and expand here on YouTube. This is a video a day series where I'm posting one video every single day to YouTube as best as I can, disciplined and consistent. So, in hopes to have an experiment of growing and hopefully reaching more people than not on YouTube to ultimately have more freedom creatively and mentally and physically, all of the things. So, if that is something you're interested in tuning into, be sure to hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, maybe share and comment some of your challenges and experiences, and maybe some experiments that you're doing within this year of 2025. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you on the inside. Bye! Hi, and welcome back to day 8 of Video Day series here on YouTube that I'm building my consistency and growth and reach. And as I promised in my last video, I wanted to reflect on the 20-day challenge that I hosted from December 13th of 2024 all the way through January 1st of this year, now 2025. And in that, I wanted to make a very strategic pain point type of video where I go through all of the pain points for myself that I came across, as well as offering some advice and why maybe this is just something you just need to go for if you are considering yourself doing something like a 20-day challenge, hosting a 20-day challenge, or 30-day challenge, or like however many day challenge that feels good for you, or if it's something similar. I think this can relate and correlate to all and every passion filled project that you may want to start heading into the new year, either for your own growth or for the benefit of others. So let's get right into that as I list out practical tips that you can use, some nuanced tips that maybe you might not have thought of. We'll also go into what has worked for me, what didn't work for me, like what I could have maybe done better, and again, some thoughts on maybe what I have gained myself from the whole experience. So if that interests you, stay tuned as I go into all of these and more in this video. So first and foremost, before I get into it, I want to let you know that the 20-day challenge was all about self-empowerment, growth and transformation to reduce stress, build resiliency, and to form a lasting mind, body, and soul wellness relationship with yourself. And I will say I had 18 people join the challenge, and there was more than 30% of the group that actually stayed through consistently. And I will say, through this experience, I learned a lot about myself and about maybe what other people are looking for at this time. And in all of this, too, one of the main things that I wanted to bring to light was that it truly offered me the understanding that I don't have to have it right or perfect at first, that during all of this, while I'm moving through the process and experience myself, I am reformulating, reframing, and, um, building more of a offer that may be stronger in the future. So if, again, something sounds interesting in this this offering in particular, what I'm talking about, that for you, if it sounds interesting for you to do, then I want to go over these pain points with you. And that's why I just wanted to share a little bit about what it actually is that I'm talking about here so that we can go into more detail. So, anywho, let's get back to the pinpoints. Okay, so some of the pain points I wanted to mention again, not necessarily pain points, but also there are some pain points, but some of the main things that I wanted to talk about was what went right and then maybe what could have went better. So I want to start with four things that really just went right effortlessly, was magical through and through. So the four things, one of the first things that really went right for me was the fact that when I was leading up to wanting to do this 20-day challenge was I was posting to Instagram, and really Instagram only. I did a little bit of promoting on TikTok, but it really wasn't it. I'm still not really a TikToker, so it wasn't the main source of promotion that I really wanted to use. So I just promoted on Instagram, and I did for about 2 weeks because I knew what I needed to do 2 weeks ahead of time. And it was as soon as I knew what I needed to do, I started promoting it. And this was something that I had learned a little bit from Danco. He is one of my favorite speakers on YouTube, which I will reference him probably a lot throughout this whole experience and maybe videos to come, but because I credit him for giving a lot of really helpful, resourceful information. He definitely talked about how, you know, you can build this product and not necessarily have it all put together. And I really took that to heart. And I actually have I've noticed a lot of really successful one person business owners on social media talk about this. So he's not the only one. I just wanted to credit a few of these people, but he's the first one that comes to mind where you can have something that you really want to do and it not be perfect and it not have substance yet. That while you're working towards this goal of promoting something, you're still building the product, and the promotion itself is the time that you're giving yourself to create the thing that it is that you want to do. So the thing that really worked for me that I really benefited from was promoting on Instagram, and because that's where most of my following is. Mind you, I did not have a email list yet, so that was something I was also working on building and bringing people towards while I was cross promoting on Instagram and a few times on TikTok. So I knew the product that I needed to blast out. I know what I needed to do, and I was promoting on Instagram. That was definitely the thing that I knew would be of more service to my product than not, because that was where my um, the majority of my viewers are. So if you have a space that, a lot of your, so what I'm trying to find, um, the people that view you on Instagram or like your social media, your platform, your viewers, wherever they are, just start there, and that is enough. So the second thing that I wanted to mention that really went well is I actually direct messaged the people that I thought would benefit from this. And this again was on Instagram, so it kind of tags into the first point. But I messaged the people who I knew might would benefit from it, but also people that I really cared about that I wanted to see in the group. And I went all up and down my DMs and went into people's comments and directed them to the latest posts that I had been posting about promoting the product itself and the offering itself. So if I just want to mention that this actually did more for me than just making posts. This was the biggest thing to direct people to the actual product. And as soon as I did that, I actually got more um, I got more traffic to my email where I would be hosting this challenge in general. It actually helped a lot more when I direct message the people. So I would say this is, if not more priority than just making posts on Instagram or wherever it is that your viewers are. So the third thing I want to mention is I myself committed to the 20 days. That was something that went really, really well because I actually followed through. Wow. Like amazing, right? And it actually was something that I want to mention the things that I could have done better. So I'll allude a little bit to that is I didn't have it automatically all set up. So I actually went in every single day with the 20 days, with all of the people on this 20-day challenge to write up every single post every single day, which in hindsight, I could have. This is kind of like a catch 22 in what could have went better and what I did really well, which is I I in hindsight wish I had given myself more time to create more of um this the leading up to the offering the actual day-to-day work that I had put into it because it did end up not necessarily taking so much energy from me, but it gave me the opportunity to be consistent and show up for myself in a really special way that otherwise I probably wouldn't have if I had just had everything on automation. So, this is why this is in the first tier of what went really well because I myself have changed in this really impactful way. And I have so many thoughts on the advice and stuff that I will give later, so stay tuned for that and that what went really well and what actually changed and advice that I would give people in this essence of if you're committing to something that it actually is going to transform you if you're not used to doing something in a disciplinary way. So for me, that went really, really well. The fourth thing I want to mention and last thing in what went really, really well is I embraced my personal fear of being imperfect. I have always been somebody who won't start something, won't even look at it if I know it won't be perfect. And those of you who know astrology, that I will reference really quickly because it's something that I do often, is my Chiron is in Virgo. And if you know anything about Chiron, that is your wounded healer. If you don't know anything about Chiron, regardless, it's the aspect in your chart. We all have it in the placement within our chart that rules a house, that rules a sign within our chart that has an energy of a wounded healer. And mine is in Virgo. And Virgo is all about the nitpicky, organized perfection, um, everything beautiful and concise and again organizational. So in my world, my imperfection is like I get numb if I can sense that it's not going to be the way I really want it to be and that I feel weakened by it because it becomes my wound. It becomes the thing that it's like the thorn in the foot or the Achilles heel to the action that I take. I don't take action or I don't do the thing and I just, it's in this analysis paralysis thing. So I want to give kudos to myself that this is something that went work really well for me is my sense of perfectionism. I cut that almost nearly 90% of the way, more than half of the way. My perfectionism um went almost to just embracing the imperfection. And not that it's sloppy, because I wouldn't put anything out that is sloppy. It in its own imperfection became perfection. And I've just really been thriving on that because it's not that it needs to be perfect yet and that maybe it won't ever be perfect, but you got to start somewhere. And that is another thing that I'll mention and I'm alluding to as advice for um, what maybe you can take into account when you are starting something maybe that's different for you in the future that you could really benefit from. But I would say that went really well for me is just doing it and allowing myself to learn through the process of it. And it has been a process into something that I embrace the phrase of um, progress makes perfection, or perfection through progress, or I'm even saying it wrong, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say, that it's not like practice makes perfect, it's progress builds onto the practice so that it becomes something that you're really, really proud of. And that's something I want to take into my pocket into the future as I look forward in building this practice for myself and doing more of the things that I really want to do instead of staying in analysis paralysis. So, good job to me for embracing the fear of my imperfection and just doing it anyway. All right, had to take a sip of water. Now we're going to move into what could have been better. There's four things here that I want to mention as well. So here we go. What could have been better for me? I could have researched the email marketing, email host platform that I was using a little bit more, a little bit better than I did. And I say that because that was the place that I was going to be connecting with the people who signed up to take the challenge. So that was going to be the platform. It wasn't Instagram, it wasn't TikTok, it wasn't YouTube, it wasn't these places that generally most people are familiar with. It was a place that I had only just signed up for. Again, like I mentioned in the first bracket, the things that worked for me was this is where I was sending people to. I didn't even create my email list yet, but if I had worked with maybe like MailChimp or Flowdesk, places that I had been before, I wanted to try something that I hadn't done before because it was recommended by a mentor of mine, that it wasn't necessarily wrong of me to go towards something that I had never done before, but it also in itself was a challenge because it was a learning curve and it added a little bit of extra time on my plate doing something that I hadn't done before. In general, the whole 20-day challenge I hadn't done before, but because it was an email marketing system that I had never done before in general, and a system on a platform that I had never used before. It was just a little extra of a leg that I wish I had spent a little bit more time on, because the second pain point I want to mention is going to tag onto this. But the reason I made it its own bracket in this is because I highly recommend, if you are going to do something of the sort, be in somebody's email, so to speak, for 20 days, maybe do a little bit more research, give yourself a little bit more time, and learn what it is that this platform is providing so that you can be of best service to the people who will be meeting you there. So that's why that is number one. Number two, like I said and alluded to as well, is I wish I would have learned a little bit more about the automation system from this service, because I actually realized the first day in that the automations weren't going to automate, because it was on this system that, like, once you signed up for this thing, you only had, like, if I would have created the 20 days ahead of time and listed them all out and put the automation in, everybody would have got it on every single day, is what I'm trying to say. So what I realized was I had to now make a post every single day to those people who signed up, because I didn't know that the automation was only a one-time thing. Like, once the automation was made and the person signed up for that automation, I should have made all of the days ahead of time to save myself the energy and time to make each post. And I hope that that makes sense. And if it doesn't, I want to simplify it by saying, again, pointing to number one, would have researched a little bit more of the service platform that I was using so that I would have been able to identify what it was that I needed to do every single day ahead of time. So that's why that's number two. Number three, the template of every single day that I had made, I worked with Microsoft Copilot to kind of get clearer on some pinpoints that I wanted to make as far as what the template was that I would use. So when I went intuitively within myself to create each day, it was what is going to be clear and concise. And I actually wish I would have made it a little bit more simple. So the points that I made in it was, um, in brief, gratitude practice, a self-reflection moment, the challenge itself, the evening reflection, and then um, affirmations and the intention for the day, and all of that, not in necessarily any particular order, but it just was a lot that I think for my first service to save myself maybe the headache, and also maybe possibly that would have made the success rate and the number of people and the percentage of people that actually showed up every day, I feel like maybe would have helped um, in the long run. So what I mean by that is if I had made it maybe like an intention, the challenge, and reflection instead of maybe like five or six things that I had listed out just now, maybe it would have like shortened my time, my energy, my effort into creating something a little bit more impactful. So I didn't feel like, because sidestep, I had work, which is a 7 in the morning to about 4 in the afternoon day, about 4 times a week. So on days that maybe I didn't prep or I didn't have enough time to prep the next day, I would be right after work trying to get this out to people so that they had at least a little bit of time to do the challenge. And that in and of itself is one of the things that I really wish I would have, again, pain point one and two, done a little bit more time on the platform, research a little bit, but also taken the time for this pain point number three to really land of I really needed to maybe make it a little less full and heavy so that it was more consistent and more easily digestible for the people who actually were taking this challenge so that they had time to do it. It didn't take up more of my time, but I also had the availability to create the challenge and do it myself. So I would have like maybe shrunk that a little bit. And it wasn't that the information wasn't impactful. I also had impactful information. I want to make this a note too that it wasn't also that I recommend giving as much energy to this as possible, but also people aren't wanting like the highest evolved energy that you have. Like some people want simple and concise and clear, and I think the amount of text, even just looking at sometimes can be overwhelming, especially if you're on a 20-day challenge or 30-day challenge. You want to have something that is easily digestible. So I think I could have done that a little bit better. Pain point number four. I think the community connections could have been a little bit better. And what I mean by that is I made a Facebook group to bring everybody together. And I think if I had, again, pain point number one, two, and three, made it a little bit more simple, I would have had more time to connect more people on the group, as well as spend more time bonding, sharing my insight with the journey, and doing all of things. Meanwhile, I had the all intention of doing that, but I ended up running out of time. Like so many days like took so much energy from me because I didn't give myself, allot myself enough time to spend in the community container and share maybe some personal insights, as well as I didn't get as many bonus offerings as I really wanted to, and then the overall ending offering that I wanted to. So to build that relationship to then lead into another offering that I really wanted to have at the end to keep the ball rolling and keep this community connected. And meanwhile, there are still people that are staying connected through that channel because it's still live. I still wish I would have been able to spend a little bit more time building those relationships. And I slowed down on my Instagram posts. Like I was charged up for a while and posting on Instagram and keeping it alive, but I just ended up trying not to burn myself out. I got really close. There was a couple times I got really close to being burned out, but I embraced the all right, I'm just going to breathe into not making it absolutely perfect. I had to reiterate that to myself over and over again and made it clear and concise as possible. Took a break and just said, this is the first go around. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. And I know that if I can do this, I can do it again and I can make it better the next time and even more simple and um, easily digestible for the next go round. So that was the last thing that I really wanted to bring home on things that I could have done better. Because I mentioned the really wonderful resource that I have, a mentor now that I have, Dan Coe. He has brought to light so many different beautiful um, perspectives that I needed and have needed for a very long time. And, when we get into these places of like analysis paralysis, which I'm so good at sometimes, you lose sight of maybe the simple. And I think when I listen to Danco talk and when I read the words that he writes, sometimes it brings me back to a state of just simplicity. And he, in and of himself, is simple, but no way, shape, or form is the essence of what he's saying simple, because it takes a really strong mind to understand the gravity of what it is that he's saying. So, in that, I wanted to offer a few quotes that really land for me in reference to this video in particular, to bring into light, to culminate all of what it is that I'm talking about. And the first quote is, "A plan is an educated guess, a surface area for luck, a mental frame to keep chaos at bay, a lens to notice ideas that lead to progress, a strategy that changes as you act." And I want to talk about this one because it's what we're doing in the 20-day challenge, 30-day challenge, whatever it is that you feel resonant to moving forward with this video in particular, something for yourself or for other people, is a plan. We get this confused a lot of times because we think we have to have it perfect. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience and from my own idea of why I never started in the first place, is because we think a plan needs to be like perfect right off the bat. But in fact, what he says here is a plan is an educated guess. It's you take the resources you have, the information you know, the wisdom within you, and the abilities and the skills that you've acquired over time, which he talks about a lot in so many of his videos, is you've learned all of this in order to provide something to other people, because not everybody is where you are, and you're not where maybe the majority of people are either, but you do have an understanding of what could benefit somebody who isn't where you are. And it's approximation of something that you are working towards and that you are growing through, and it becomes this very authentic um, offering where, if you're making steps towards something like a 20-day challenge, or you're going to be hosting a 20-day challenge, you're going to be learning through that experience because you've never done it before. And maybe if you have, you know now more the wiser because you've learned from a place where you were before, and again, because you're now learning and growing into an involved area of that thing. So that's exactly what he's saying. It's like, I can land on this idea of what it may look like, but I won't ever really know until I put my foot in the door towards that thing and actually take the action to do it. So I really love that very first line is like, a plan is an educated guess, because you're taking the resources you know, the wisdom you have within you to do this thing that may or may not work, and you won't ever know if you don't take the action to do it. And it's this idea of like, we're really progressing towards our perfection. And though spiritually in and of itself we are already perfect, it's the actions we're taking in towards our creation in this physical plane, on this physical plane, in this world, towards the thing that feels really, really good, because we know we need to do it, because we would be better because of it, yet we don't, because we overanalyze and want to have it perfect at first and just never take the action to do it. The second quote I want to bring into light is, do what you want, reflect on what you don't want, refine what you want, do what you want, repeat until success. And this is, gives me chills every single time, because it is the exact thing that the other quote alludes to, and that we want things, we desire things, and this is a natural state of our human experience. However, we limit ourselves or put ourselves in containers because there's so much of and this is my own reflection in this quote of, we identify with the other in a sense of comparison, or just overanalysis paralysis, because we don't think we have the skills acquired to teach somebody from a state of where we are, though we are always in a state of where we are because we learned from something in our past and now we're here. So, very practical advice in that, if I want to create a 20-day challenge, which I did, and I would consider that a success, but in that was something I really, really wanted. Maybe you have a desire, maybe there is something that you really, really desire and that you want, and you're just giving yourself the excuse that you can't accomplish it. This is why this quote is so impactful. Do what you want, reflect on what you don't want, because what you don't want is probably severely outweighing like all of the reasons why you should. I mean, you shouldn't. And the reason you should is because it's tilting towards, I want to clarify, revert what I'm saying. It's tilting towards all of the things that you want, because that severely outweighs the things that you don't want. And what you don't want is to not be successful, to not live happily. And that means you have to take the action towards something, even if it's not perfect. And while you're doing this thing, like for me, I was growing myself through this challenge. I was learning as I go, but I knew that that was something that I wanted, was consistency, discipline, to embrace the fear and do it anyway, to embrace my imperfection and just build something, because I knew that if I didn't take the action towards that thing, I would never do it. I would be in analysis paralysis. So I did what I want. And while I was growing through it, I'm refining the process of what it is that I'm doing and building a more perfect example of the thing that maybe wasn't as perfect before. But I refined as I was going, because what I learned was, even through it, maybe what I wanted to begin with midway through didn't align with the same things, and then I started to want different things. And even though there was this basis of understanding, like, I want to build my discipline, consistent effort, that was the goal of this 20-day experiment for me, and as well as this essence of self-empowerment that I would gain, I realized further as I went that it really truly was about embracing my imperfection. And that was what I started to desire even more than building a consistent daily practice. It was, okay, I really don't have it right, but my perfection lens started to like almost like fractal out, because I started to embrace that what I really wanted was just to actually do something that felt really good for me. So In that, I did what I want, reflected on what I don't want, and then I started to refine what I wanted again to get it a little bit more perfect in and of itself of being imperfect. And then I did again what I wanted. So, like I mentioned earlier, was I created a relationship with myself where, all right, I needed to understand that if I pushed through my discomfort and actually like made the post instead of like putting it off and waiting to the last second and giving my all, even if my all was, okay, I need to put this thing out and embrace the imperfection of it, I still did that and learned when I could lean back a little bit and relax and give myself time to rest when I started to feel maybe I was becoming a little bit burnt out. So that was the thing I really deeply desired to transform, was to not burn myself out. And then it became this like relationship, and it almost became the charged up thing that I needed to get through the 20 days, which wasn't just I'm going to slug through to get through it because I need to get through it to prove something to people. It was, I really felt charged up and ready to like, all right, I'm going to go. I showed up every single day, and that was the thing that like really started to reframe the relationship I had with the creation itself. So, did what I want, reflected what I didn't want, refined what I wanted, and then did what I want. And then ultimately, I repeated that process throughout the whole 20 days. And again, I became successful because I actually completed something that otherwise my past self had stopped me from doing because I didn't believe that I actually could be successful from a consistent daily practice of 20 plus days. And honestly, I'm better because of it, because guess what? Today is day 8 of a video a day series on YouTube that I am now recording, editing, uploading, and filming and writing up the pinpoints and stuff that I'm even talking about here today. Like, all of that never quite seemed possible. And I think the key takeaway from these two quotes in particular is you have to start somewhere and you have to do the thing, because I am now the wiser of doing this 20-day challenge. Embracing that challenge for me was always going to lead me here, because ultimately what I really really wanted was to be a YouTube creator, to have my sense of freedom, to build this resiliency, this aspect of growth and empowerment, that I now am able to do this. That though there, it's like I'm still starting from a very small basis of imperfection, I'm still able to sit in front of this camera and talk to you for 30 plus 40 minutes on something that I experienced, while also gaining the experience to do something that I really want to do in the future, which is do more of this and however it transforms, but also to have the freedom and the creative freedom, more specifically, to be in this relationship and flow with the universe and the divine that ultimately allows me great success, fulfillment, happiness, and to be in my joy. So, those are the quotes I wanted to bring to light. And now, on to the advice that I would give to anybody who wants to learn more about maybe a challenge or something that they're doing, a creative project that they're wanting to unleash on the world. Last thing, here we go. Hold on to your seats. So, advice. I'm going to offer you some practical advice. So, maybe some things that you have heard of and things that you just need maybe a little reminder about. And then I'm also wanting to offer you some nuanced advice, some things that maybe you don't quite immediately think of, but also maybe you have thought of, but again, it may be a reminder, but some things that really truly helped me bridge the space of, can I do this? And actually, hell yeah, I've done this and I've been successful because of it. So here we go. Here's the practical advice I would give you. And there's 4 points to both the practical and nuanced advice that I would give you. The first practical advice that I would give you is reflect on what you're passionate about. So if you're starting out wanting to build something of a greater service, reflect on really what you're passionate about and form 3 points, the top three things that you're really, really passionate about. And these should be things that you find yourself talking about, thinking about on a normal daily basis more often than not. Narrow it down to three things that you're super passionate about. Because the next practical advice that I would give you is focus on the greatest service. Pardon me. Let me rephrase that. Focus on the greatest service that you can provide a greater whole. And this is like the audience that you already have. What is the thing that when you're posting or that you're talking about, and maybe if you haven't had this relationship with your audience yet, that you want to build the relationship with? So, whatever those three things are, narrow it down to the three things. And then again, the second practical advice would be focus on the greatest service that you could provide. Talk to the points that you want to talk to the, of a greater whole. So what it is that you're narrowing down, the things that you're really, really passionate about, what in those three things can you focus on that would provide a greater service to a greater whole, which means right now, maybe the audience you have, or your immediate community in your neighborhood, or if it's your family, or whoever would benefit. If just, I want you to think even bigger than that too. Like, include those people, but social media, if you want to think about it like that, is such a wide world that what of those three things could you talk about that would give a great service to a greater whole? So zoom out. What of those things could you talk about that would offer a lasting, impactful service to that greater whole? And then the third thing would be, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to be a creation. So, whatever it is that you really deeply desire of those three things, the thing that you're building a greater service around, if you're wanting to create something around it, just do it. And that is the fourth thing, because the third thing is going to lead you into all these things. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. We overanalyze, we do all these things to tell ourselves not to do it because we're comparing ourselves to the model esque of whatever it is that we're comparing ourselves to. And we just stop there and we never accomplish it because we stay in that like mental state. So I would advise you to just do it. And that again is the fourth point. So, practical advice, narrow it down to three things that you're really, really passionate about. Of those three things, what could be of greater service to a bigger whole? What would support your immediate audience? What would allow them to transform even in the slightest way? And then offer this thing in a very vulnerable, authentic way, and just go for it. Just go for it. Don't think about it. It's never going to be perfect. And even maybe if it does eventually become perfect, you have a starting point, even a reference point, and something to be proud of yourself for doing and better and being better because of it. So, the four nuanced advice that I would give you is number one, what I just kind of alluded to was be authentic. Share your fears, your doubts, your worries, your concerns about even the thing that you're wanting to put out in general. People love to know that you are a human just as much as they are, because no matter what we see on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all the things, we have this idea of perfection because there's only one lens, one scope that we're getting and seeing from these people. And that in and of itself is the comparison model that allows us or diminishes us, that limits us feeling um, lesser than or not as competent as, or whatever that wound is for you. Sorry. Whatever that wound is for you that limits you from creating the thing that you really want to create. So I would say when you're creating these things, it builds a stronger relationship. And I will say we have in in a greater global wound, we have this fear that if we're authentic and we're vulnerable and that we share ourselves, that people are going to look down on us or they're going to think lesser than of us. Think of your best friend when they come to you with something really like they need help, like you feel so honored that they would choose you to share that really deep, intimate space with, that you have the opportunity to help them with. That is, in a greater whole, what everybody really deeply desires and wants, because we don't have that immediately. Not a lot of people have that. So the more that you can be authentic, the more that you can share yourself, the practice thereof leading up to the thing that you're really working towards. So for me, leading up to the 20-day challenge, I was sharing, how long I've really been putting this off, because I was in a analysis paralysis state. I was in a fearful state. Building that relationship with your audience, telling them, giving them maybe the inside scoop of what it's like to maybe resist or be in fear of doing the thing that it really feels like you're being pointed in the right direction to do, that you're not doing because of said blah 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 blah. So the second nuanced thing that I would offer you is make a micro offer to your people. If you are already building an audience, even if you're not, just be bold and freaking do it. Again, this is going to be a practical advice, touch on sprinkle of like the just do it of, you can do whatever you want to do. And what I mean by that is, if you have no audience, if you're just starting out, build that relationship if you would like, where you're leading them to a micro offer, like your Ko-Fi or your coffee, if you want to say, or your PayPal or your Patreon. Send them a micro offer, like get behind the scenes scoop, like look at what I'm doing, and lead them there so that you can build a relationship with the people there too. But also, you're bold enough to say, like, I am worthy of maybe a set energy that comes my way because I'm putting something out there that really is impactful and that is meaningful. So that's something I would offer you to consider if you're looking into doing this for yourself. The third nuanced tip that I would give is research and study people you admire that are in your select niche, or that are doing the things that are already doing the things that you want to do, that, are similar to the traits and characteristics of you, or similar to the things that you want to be or the person you want to be, and research what has worked for them. Look at what has worked for them, study them, take time to follow them, give them a like, shout them out, get your followers even familiar with them, because they're gonna want to see more of what it is that you're even talking about. So if you're coming from a very new state of sharing this thing that you're really passionate about, and maybe you've never done it before, it's going to help, almost like, what's the term, like, uh get people desensitized to the thing that it is that you're going to be sharing as well. So in that, once you are familiar with these people, once your audience are familiar with these people, you can even be more of a leading voice in those topics as well. So this is maybe like a three-parter to this in particular third nuanced point of, I really want to bring home that if you study and research people that are doing the things that you're already, that I keep saying that wrong, that are already doing the things that you want to be doing, or are speaking of the topics that you really enjoy, that you're really passionate about, even reach out to them, like send them a message to just to say, build a relationship with them, like, hey, I really enjoy what you're doing, like, is it okay that I ask maybe what has worked for you and what hasn't worked for you, and just build that bond with them. This is a topic too that Dan Coe brings home. He had just recently made another video that he pointed out, um, that I also find really helpful, is um, just build that relationship with them and form this idea that you're no different than them, because you are equally as deserving of whatever even audience they have, and if it has worked for them, then it can absolutely work for you. And the fourth and last nuance thing that I want to share, the advice I would give is um, work the product or offering as if you are creating something for yourself. So, what really worked for me on this 20-day challenge was I created something that I knew I needed to do. And though it was for other people, I wanted to bring people into the world that I was creating for myself because I knew that I needed to change whatever that thing is for me. So, if it's for you, then you'll have more passion and a desire to create the thing from a very heart-centered place. Whereas, so many different versions of people's offerings these days are like copy, paste, repeat. And you know what I'm talking about. It's the same things, but maybe in a different way, in a different color scheme or a different theme, because they're creating it from a lens of what has worked for other people only. Where this nuance point that I'm talking about is if you create something that is for yourself that you know you would benefit from, it can't not be successful, because if it's meant for you and you have this relationship with this thing that you're transforming through, there is bound to be at least one other person out there in the world that will benefit from it. And I want to make a bonus nuance point to tag on to that in particular comment is, if it works for you, there's somebody else out there that it will benefit from, and that it is so great to have and know and trust that if you can help at least one other person in the world, that is amazing and magical even of itself, and that of your service, whatever it is that you're providing, has done its job, and that you have become a success, and that it is it has done more for you than not, and has done more for the world than not. And that if that is too the one thing that helps somebody, that you can continue on and you can roll with it, and you continue on with more and more of these successful journeys and these adventures and these experiences and these challenges that you want to create for yourself as well as others. And yeah, so just keep going with that, and it will always end up coming back to you full circle with more of this energy and the flow, and you'll be able to create more things for yourself, um, like I am doing for myself at this moment with this new video a day series on YouTube. So those are the advice that is the advice I would give, practical and nuanced, if you're looking to create something like this for yourself and or participate in a new journey or adventure or experience as well. So I hope that this video has brought you some helpful information and has enlightened you in more ways than one. And if it has, please remember to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel to find more videos like these, and to stay along with my journey as I, work through this consistent progress experience through posting a video a day on YouTube journey. And if you would like to share maybe some thoughts on your own experiences with the topics that I talked about today, please make some comments down in the comment section below. And I look forward to seeing you in any videos in the future. Namaste.